The quantum prison and the girl who broke the timeline. The city of Eryndor never slept. Its skyscrapers glowed with a cold, neon blue, and the streets pulsed with the hum of hovercars. But beneath the bright lights, the underworld of the city whispered of secrets, of experiments that were never meant to see the light of day. Among them was the quantum prison, a place said to hold those who had broken time itself. Mira Talon had grown up hearing stories of the quantum prison, though she had never believed them. Her life was ordinary as one could be in a city that thrived on anomalies. She studied physics, not because she loved it, but because she wanted to understand the world before it swallowed her whole. One evening, while Mira walked home from her lab, she noticed a flicker in the air, a distortion that shimmered like heat over pavement. She reached out instinctively, and the world tilted. The streetlights stretched and bent, forming tunnels of light that made her head spin. And then she was gone. When Mira opened her eyes, she was in a vast, circular chamber. Walls of shifting colors and glowing patterns surrounded her. At the center floated a sphere of light, pulsating as if it were alive. A voice, smooth and metallic, echoed from nowhere. "Welcome, Mira Talon. You have been selected." "Selected? For what?" Mira asked, her voice trembling. "To witness the boundaries of time, and perhaps, to break them." Before she could react, the sphere expanded, engulfing her in blinding light. The next moment, she was outside the city, or what looked like outside. Time itself seemed fractured. Buildings floated in fragments, skies split into pieces, and people walked backward, forward, and sideways all at once. A girl appeared beside her. She was small, with short hair that shimmered silver, and eyes that seemed to hold the stars themselves. "I've been waiting for you," the girl said. "My name is Lyra. And this is the quantum prison." "The quantum prison?" Mira whispered, looking around. "Yes. A place outside all time. People who interfere with the timeline are sent here. They call it a prison, but it's more like a testing ground." Mira's mind raced. "Why am I here?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Because, Mira, you already broke something. You just don't know it yet." The chamber shifted again. Mira felt her body stretch and compress as if time itself was squeezing her. Memories of her life, her friends, her parents, everything, flashed in and out of her mind. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. "Here, every choice you've made exists at once. Every possibility, every outcome. And every one of them is being watched." Mira clutched her head. "Watched? By who?" "The custodians. They maintain the timeline. They prevent the collapse. And you, Mira, might be the one who can break it, or fix it." Before Mira could respond, a ripple ran through the chamber. Shadows formed, dark and twisting, reaching for her. Lyra grabbed her hand. "Hold on. They test us here. They want to see if we can control the impossible." Mira felt a surge of power inside her, unfamiliar and wild. Her hands glowed faintly, and the shadows recoiled. You have the ability to alter time itself," Lyra whispered. "Most fail. But maybe, you won't." The next day, or what she thought was the next day, Mira awoke on a platform of floating crystal. Lyra was beside her, guiding her to a series of portals. "Every portal leads to a moment," Lyra explained. "A choice you made. A choice someone else made. Your task is to understand them. To see how the timeline bends, and where it breaks." Mira hesitated. "But how am I supposed to do that?" "Feel it," Lyra said. "Time is not just something you move through. It's something you touch, something you feel. You have to trust it, and yourself." The first portal shimmered like liquid glass. Mira stepped through and found herself in her childhood home. But it was wrong. Her parents were different, the furniture strange, and the air heavy with tension. She realized this was a version of her past that never happened. "You see?" Lyra's voice came from behind her. "Every choice creates a branch. Some branches are stable, some dangerous. The custodians prune the dangerous ones." Mira reached out to touch a glowing object on the table. The moment her fingers brushed it, the room shook violently. The walls bent, the floor cracked, and a voice screamed in her mind. "You should not be here." She stumbled back. I didn't do anything." "You already did," Lyra said calmly. "The moment you touched it, you became part of the timeline. Part of the quantum flow. And now, you're noticed. A shadow appeared, taller and darker than before. It was alive, but not alive in any normal sense. It lunged at Mira, and she instinctively raised her hands. Time slowed around her, and she felt the threads of possibility stretch like elastic. She pushed, pulling the moment apart, and the shadow dissolved into particles of light. Mira fell to her knees, trembling. "You can do it," Lyra said softly. "You can bend the timeline. But it will take everything you have." Mira looked around at the fractured world of the quantum prison, feeling a mixture of fear and wonder. She realized, for the first time, that the stories of time travelers, of broken timelines, were not just myths. She was living them. And perhaps, she was meant to change them. Mira awoke to a different world. The ground beneath her feet was not solid. It shimmered like liquid metal. Above her, fractured skies rotated in slow circles, casting shadows that moved independently of the light. Lyra stood beside her, calm as ever, her silver hair catching the distorted light. "Today, you face the custodians," Lyra said. "They are the guardians of the timeline. Some call them merciless. Others call them necessary. You will find they are both." Mira swallowed hard. "Face them? How? I don't even understand what they are." "They are not like you," Lyra explained. "They are entities born from the timeline itself. They do not age, they do not sleep, and they do not forgive mistakes." Before Mira could reply, the ground beneath them split, forming a canyon of endless depth. From its shadows rose figures cloaked in darkness. Their forms shifted constantly, like smoke in the wind. "You will each confront your own timeline," one custodian's voice boomed, echoing from everywhere at once. "Fail, and you remain trapped. Succeed, and you may leave, changed." Mira felt fear twist in her chest, but Lyra squeezed her hand. "Remember, Mira, control your fear. Feel the timeline, and you can bend it." The first custodian approached, its body refracting the fractured light into 1,000 eyes. It raised an arm, and suddenly, Mira's memories exploded around her. Her parents, her friends, moments of triumph, and moments of failure. She saw herself making decisions she had long forgotten, choices she had never realized mattered. "You meddle with what you do not understand," the custodian intoned. "And yet, you persist. Why?" Mira focused, remembering Lyra's words. She reached into the flood of her memories, touching each moment, stretching it, reshaping it. The memories bent to her will. A memory of a failed experiment glowed brighter, merging with a success she had imagined but never achieved. The custodian recoiled, its form flickering. "Interesting," it whispered. "Few can manipulate time with such clarity. But will it last?" Before Mira could respond, the second custodian appeared. It carried the weight of countless timelines in its presence. Its voice was softer but sharper, cutting through her thoughts like ice. "You seek to break the flow. Yet the flow seeks balance. Can one human bear such power?" Mira shook. I don't know. But I have to try." The custodian extended its hand, and the world fractured further. She saw herself in countless realities, some joyous, some tragic. Some she did not recognize at all. Each path seemed to scream at her, demanding attention, demanding choice. Mira felt herself unraveling under the weight of infinite possibilities. But then she remembered Lyra's guidance: "Feel the timeline, trust yourself." She closed her eyes and reached deep inside, not fighting the chaos, but flowing with it. Time slowed. Memories aligned. Realities overlapped. Mira's hands glowed as she wove the strands together, choosing which moments would survive, which would fade, and which could coexist. The custodians watched, their shifting forms silent. Slowly, they began to fade, melting into light as the timeline stabilized around Mira. When she opened her eyes, the fractured world was still strange, but calm. "You are stronger than most," Lyra said, her eyes wide with respect. "You have survived the custodian's trial." Mira sank to her knees, exhausted. "Why me? Why can I do this?" "Because," Lyra said softly, "you are not just part of the timeline. You are a catalyst. And catalysts either burn or illuminate. Right now, you are choosing to illuminate." A low rumble shook the world. Mira looked up to see a crack forming in the sky above them, black and jagged, like a tear in reality itself. From it came a voice, distant but commanding. The timeline weakens. She has awakened. Prepare the quantum chains. Mira's heart pounded. What does that mean? Lyra grabbed her hand again. It means they know we exist. It means the real challenge is about to begin. And this time, it will not be just a test of skill, it will be a test of everything you are. Mira looked at the crack, the swirling skies, and the trembling world beneath her feet. For the first time, she understood the magnitude of her power. She was not just trapped in the quantum prison, she was at the center of it. And the decisions she made next could either shatter reality, or save it. The tear in the sky pulsed like a wound, dark energy spilling into the quantum prison. Mira's heart raced as she stared at it. The world around her shimmered with instability, floating fragments of cities, collapsing bridges, and people frozen mid-motion, trapped in impossible moments. Lyra gripped Mira's arm. That is the fractured nexus. It's where all broken timelines converge. If it spreads, every reality could collapse. Even the custodians cannot fully contain it. Mira swallowed hard. Then, we have to fix it. No, Lyra said firmly. We have to control it. Only someone who can weave time itself can touch the nexus without being destroyed. Mira looked at her hands, still glowing faintly from her earlier trials. Fear battled curiosity in her chest. She wanted to turn back, to return to her old life of equations and predictable results. But part of her, part of the part that had felt the thrill of bending time, refused. The floating fragments of the world shifted, revealing figures trapped in frozen moments. Children laughed, lovers argued, soldiers fought battles that would never end. Mira felt a pang of guilt. These were real people, real choices, frozen in chaos because someone, perhaps even herself, had meddled with the flow of time. Every choice matters, Lyra whispered. And now, you must make the choices that matter most. Mira nodded, her resolve hardening. She stepped toward the nexus, her body humming with energy. Time stretched and bent around her, memories and possibilities spinning like a storm. She could see versions of herself, some who had failed, some who had succeeded, and some who had never even existed. As she reached out, the nexus lashed at her with shards of broken realities. Each one stabbed at her mind, regrets, fears, and moments she wished she could forget. Mira faltered. Do not fight them, Lyra said urgently. Flow with them. You are part of the nexus now. Understand it, or it will destroy you. Mira closed her eyes. She let the fragments wash over her, seeing the choices behind every shard. She reached out with her mind, weaving the moments together, selecting threads to strengthen, threads to dissolve. One vision hit her harder than the rest, a version of herself standing on a rooftop, looking down at the city as it burned. She realized it was a timeline where she had failed completely, where her curiosity and meddling had doomed countless lives. The pain of that possibility made her falter. No, she whispered. I won't let it happen. Energy flared from her body, and time itself seemed to respond. The shards of broken realities began to merge, reforming into coherent moments. Cities reassembled, people blinked back into motion, and the floating fragments of the world began to settle. But the nexus was not defeated. The black tear above her still pulsed, growing larger, hungering for collapse. From it emerged a figure, a being of shadow and light, older than time itself, its presence warping everything around it. You dare touch what should remain broken, the being demanded. Its voice resonated in every corner of Mira's mind. You are not meant to exist here. I am meant to exist here, Mira shouted, her voice echoing with authority she had never felt before. I am the one who can fix this. The being laughed, a sound that shattered fragments of reality. Fix it? You will break it instead. You cannot control the timelines without destroying yourself. Mira felt doubt creeping in, but then she remembered Lyra's words, the custodian's tests, and every choice that had led her here. She realized something vital. Control did not mean domination. To fix the nexus, she had to understand it, embrace it, and make sacrifices. I understand, she said calmly, focusing her energy. I cannot undo every mistake. I cannot save every possibility. But I can guide them, balance them, and protect what matters most. The being recoiled as Mira's hands glowed brighter. Threads of time stretched from her fingertips, wrapping around the nexus, pulling the shattered timelines into alignment. It was excruciating, as if her mind were being stretched across every reality at once. Finally, with a surge of light, The nexus shrieked and then stilled. The tear in the sky closed, leaving only a faint shimmer in its place. The broken world around her stabilized, the floating fragments merging into a strange but coherent reality. Mira collapsed to her knees, exhausted beyond comprehension. Lyra knelt beside her, a proud smile on her face. "You did it," Lyra said softly. "You've become more than a catalyst. You are a weaver." Mira's eyes filled with tears. "But what about the nexus? What about the being?" "It is contained," Lyra explained. "For now. The timelines will hold, but there will always be risks. That is the nature of being a weaver." Mira looked at the stabilized world, feeling both awe and sorrow. She had changed everything and yet, not everything. Some losses were permanent, some memories forever altered. But for the first time, she understood the power and responsibility of her gift. "Come," Lyra said, helping her to stand. "The quantum prison is not over. There is still much to learn, and your journey is only beginning." Mira nodded. She felt stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. Whatever came next, she knew she could face it. She had broken through fear, faced the custodians, and wrestled with the nexus itself. She had survived the quantum prison, and she would reshape the timeline for the better. Mira stood on the edge of a floating platform, looking down at a world that was no longer fractured. The quantum prison had shifted around her, quiet now, like a storm that had passed. She could feel the timelines pulsing beneath her feet, humming with energy she could almost, but not quite, control. Lyra stepped beside her. "This is the exit." "Well, part of it. Once you leave the prison, the real work begins. Outside, the timelines are not contained. They are messy, unpredictable, and full of consequences." Mira's heart raced. "I've faced the nexus. I've survived the custodians. How hard can it be?" Lyra's eyes softened. "Harder than anything you've imagined. The quantum prison prepares you, but it cannot teach you everything. Every choice you make outside will ripple, and not all ripples can be controlled." With a deep breath, Mira stepped forward. The world stretched around her, the edge of the prison dissolving into a brilliant light. When she opened her eyes again, she was standing on a familiar street in Eryndor, but something was different. People moved as if time itself had a stutter. A man paused mid-step, repeating a single gesture over and over. A car hovered briefly before continuing in jerky motion. Mira realized the consequences of the fractured timelines were not contained, they were leaking into her reality. She reached out instinctively, letting her hands glow. Threads of time wove around the anomalies, guiding them back into flow. The man resumed walking normally, the car smoothed its motion, and the street hummed with life again. Lyra watched her closely. "See? Even small changes have consequences. You cannot fix everything at once. You must choose where to intervene." Mira nodded, understanding the weight of her task. Each intervention could save one life but potentially harm another. Every action required thought, caution, and sometimes sacrifice. Their first mission came quickly. A massive building trembled, cracks running along its glass exterior. Inside, people were trapped, frozen mid-fall as gravity and time warbled around them. Mira felt the threads of time pulsing erratically. "Go," Lyra urged. "You can do this." Mira stepped forward, her hands glowing brighter than ever. She reached into the moments frozen in mid-air, carefully guiding each person back to safety. A young boy smiled at her as he landed, unaware of the disaster that had been averted. Mira felt a surge of hope, but it was tempered by exhaustion. Each intervention drained her, and each choice carried hidden consequences she could not yet see. Over the next days, or what felt like days, Mira traveled through the city, following disturbances in the timeline. She stabilized collapsing buildings, stopped accidents before they occurred, and repaired minor fractures caused by earlier disruptions. Each success reinforced her confidence, but each failure reminded her of the fragility of time. One night, Mira stood atop a rooftop, looking over the city. The glow of neon reflected in her eyes. She felt the weight of her responsibility pressing down on her, but also a thrill she had never experienced before. She was not just surviving the quantum prison, she was shaping reality. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Lyra asked, stepping beside her. Mira's gaze hardened. "I don't know if anyone can ever be fully ready. But I do know this, I won't let the timeline break again. Not while I can stop it." A faint shimmer appeared in the sky, distant but unmistakable. Mira recognized it immediately, a ripple in the timeline, a signal that another fracture was forming. Somewhere, somehow, someone was about to make a choice that could unravel everything. Mira clenched her fists, feeling the energy thrumming beneath her skin. She had faced the custodians, the nexus, and the chaos of the quantum prison itself. Now, the real challenge began. Guiding humanity without destroying it, balancing power with wisdom, and learning that sometimes, the smallest choices carried the greatest weight. Lyra smiled, a mixture of pride and concern in her eyes. Then let's go. There's work to be done, Weaver. Mira nodded. Together, they vanished into the night, threads of time flowing around them like ribbons of light, guiding their path toward the fractures that only she could mend. The city of Eryndor slept fitfully under a fractured sky, glowing faintly with traces of temporal energy. Mira stood on a rooftop, her hands still tingling from her last intervention. Though she had stabilized countless small disturbances, a nagging unease crept into her mind. Not all fractures were accidents. Some were deliberate. Someone, or something, is manipulating events, Lyra said, her eyes scanning the horizon. Not all timeline disruptions are natural. There are those who would exploit the instability for power. Mira frowned. Who could do that? And why? They are called the architects, Lyra explained. Beings who exist outside normal time, like us, but with intent to control reality itself. They create fractures to bend the world to their will. Before Mira could respond, a ripple flashed across the city. A young girl, barely 10, stood at the center of a square. Her eyes glowed with faint, unnatural light, and around her, time bent strangely. Cars halted mid-motion, fountains froze mid-splash, and shadows stretched unnaturally. She's causing it, Mira said. And she doesn't know how to control it. Lyra nodded. That's why we're here. You need to intervene, carefully. One wrong choice could make her power uncontrollable. Mira stepped closer. The girl looked at her, frightened and confused. Mira reached out, touching the threads of time around her. She tried to guide them gently, stabilizing the distortions. But the girl screamed as her uncontrolled energy resisted Mira's influence. No. I didn't mean to, the girl cried. Mira froze. Her heart pounded. This was different. Every intervention she had done so far was technical, a matter of adjusting threads and guiding moments. But this was human. Choices, fear, emotion intertwined with raw temporal energy. You have to decide, Mira, Lyra said quietly. Do you force her to stop, or do you risk letting her learn control herself? Mira's hands trembled. If she forced the girl's energy down, she might stabilize the moment. But at what cost? Suppressing her power could damage her mind, her life, perhaps even the timeline itself. But letting the girl continue uncontrolled might create a disaster far greater than she could imagine. Mira inhaled deeply. I'll try to teach her, she said. Not force her. The girl's eyes widened. Mira extended her hands and allowed the threads of time to flow around them both, not controlling, but guiding. Slowly, the girl's panic subsided, her energy bending to Mira's gentle touch. Together, they unraveled the temporal distortion, restoring the city square to normal. The girl collapsed, exhausted. Mira knelt beside her, offering a hand. It's okay. You're safe now. Lyra watched silently, a rare smile on her face. You made the right choice. Power is not just about control. It's about understanding responsibility. But the relief was short-lived. A dark ripple appeared at the edge of the city, growing rapidly, twisting the world around it. Mira's chest tightened. The architects, Lyra said grimly. They know we're here. And they're coming. Mira's mind raced. She had faced the custodians, the nexus, and countless timeline fractures. But the architects were different. They were intelligent, patient, and cunning. They did not simply test the timeline, they reshaped it for their own goals. Lyra placed a hand on Mira's shoulder. We need a strategy. You cannot act alone. Mira nodded. Then we gather allies. The Weaver can't fix the timeline by herself, but maybe, together, we can guide it safely. As they disappeared into the shadows of the city, Mira realized the weight of what she had undertaken. Each choice could save or destroy lives. Each intervention carried unknown consequences, and every new power she encountered challenged her understanding of right and wrong. Yet, for the first time, she also felt something she had never felt before, determination. No matter the architects, no matter the fractures, no matter the risk, she would fight. She would protect the timeline, not because she could, but because someone had to. And in that moment, Mira understood the truth Lyra had hinted at all along. Being a weaver was not about controlling time. It was about choosing what mattered most, even when the choice was impossible. The sky above Eryndor rippled like molten glass. Shadows of impossible structures twisted over the city, and the air hummed with tension. Mira stood on a rooftop, Lyra by her side, feeling the threads of time vibrate beneath her hands. "The architects have arrived," Lyra said. Her voice was calm, but her silver eyes reflected the chaos around them. "This is it, Mira. The culmination of everything you've learned. The final test." Myra's chest tightened. She had faced fractured timelines, the custodians, the Nexus, and even guided a child through uncontrolled power. But the architects were something else entirely. They were not tests, they were predators, intelligent and relentless, seeking to reshape reality for their own designs. A shadow emerged from the twisting sky. It was a being of immense presence, larger than any structure, its form shifting between solidity and light. Its voice resonated like the echo of eternity. "You think you can guide the timeline? You are but one thread in the infinite weave." "I am more than a thread," Mira replied, her voice firm, echoing with newfound confidence. "I am a weaver, and I decide what matters." The architects laughed, a sound that shook the streets and warped the sky. They struck at her, sending waves of temporal energy that threatened to unravel everything she had worked to stabilize. Buildings trembled, time bent violently, and even Lyra was pushed back by the force. Mira closed her eyes, drawing on everything she had learned. She reached into the chaotic threads of the timeline, feeling the infinite possibilities stretching around her. She did not fight blindly, she understood, guided, and chose. Memories of the people she had saved, the mistakes she had prevented, the child she had protected, all became anchors. She wove them together into a pattern, stabilizing the timeline around her. The architect's strikes fractured against her hands, dissipating like smoke. You are not meant to exist here," one of the architects screamed. "I am," Mira said, voice rising with determination. "Because I care. Because I choose to protect what matters. And that makes all the difference." Time itself seemed to respond. The fractured skies began to mend, the impossible shadows dissolved, and the energy of the architects weakened. Mira pushed further, channeling her power not to destroy them, but to contain them, weaving their chaos into a structured flow. The world trembled violently, and for a moment, it seemed as though everything would collapse. Mira's vision blurred, her body screamed, but she focused on one thing: choice. She chose the moments that mattered, the lives worth saving, the timelines that could survive. With a final surge, the architects were contained, locked within threads of stabilized time, unable to disrupt reality further. The city, the sky, and the world around Mira settled into a fragile, perfect harmony. "Are we done?" Mira asked quietly. "For now," Lyra said. "But there will always be fractures, challenges, and new threads to guide. That is the life of a weaver." Mira rose to her feet, feeling stronger than ever, yet humble in the face of infinite possibility. She had faced the impossible, shaped countless moments, and confronted beings older than time itself. She had broken the quantum prison not through brute force, but through understanding, compassion, and wisdom. And as the sun rose over a world that had almost fallen into chaos, Mira Talon walked forward, a weaver in a world of infinite threads, ready to protect the timeline, to guide the future, and to make the choices that would define the destiny of all. For she had learned the ultimate truth: time could bend, break, and fracture, but a single, determined soul could still guide it toward hope.